that everybody has had a good play with it, and you will note that the latter questions get more sophisticated in terms of using third-party software within the environment. All right. So there should have been what we did in Scott Grant's Chinese language experiment with Moodle was we used the password feature in Moodle to make sure that all the students start the exam at the same time, except when we forgot to put the password on once. But then, you know, quality control. Okay. This, of course, the screenshot I showed before of the software sitting beside Moodle. This software is also inside the demo, but you'd also have found a whole lot of maths software in there as well. You know, there's a standard range of Moodle questions with, you know, fill in the blanks and those sorts of things. We also did listening tests as well. So the students brought along their headsets and we had them listen to a whole lot of audio clips, and students responded via Moodle using close or, you know, that kind of question type. So I think this has quite a potential. I was speaking to NATI and they're interested in doing a multimedia capture version as well, where the students in a Auslan exam may be videoed and audio recorded for how they do, you know, I don't know how to do it, but do the Auslan hand movements. So I think there's also potential to use things like webcam capture via this sort of system. We haven't implemented that one yet, but I'm sure we could. Again, there's an example in there of a spreadsheet. You could have students manipulate it and type the answer into the form where it could then be automatically marked, or you might get them to manipulate the spreadsheet more extensively and submit the spreadsheet itself for assessment. The choice is up to you as the academic as to how and what level of kind of knowledge you want to test. Here's an example again from the demo system. There's the Scratch programming. The idea is that the student would respond by uploading their Scratch programming file. And what we're doing is we're kind of trying to make the phase 2 authentic assessment style stuff that Andrew has been doing at Outage more efficient by introducing more of an electronic workflow and minimising the double handling of the USBs. The boot environment. Again, more examples, questions. So what happens if the network goes down? You may not have experienced it this time. You will see that there's a last saved on the screen. In general, Moodle should auto-save the form content every 1 minute. If the network's to go down, this is the sort of thing you might see. We may need to work on the messaging on screen a little bit, not to frighten the students. But it's all automatic. So what happens now is we don't have a network. Now, under normal circumstances, that's the end of your LMS-based exam. In this circumstance, because we've got the USB component, we're using the USB as a second layer of backup. So every 1 minute, the backup is now redirected to an encrypted file on the USB stick. If the network comes back up, it resyncs to the server. If it doesn't, then you can still continue and finish on the USB stick. Now, during our trials, we had 2 different instances where we could not get the students' Wi-Fi to reconnect. This thing allowed us to continue those exams, retrieve the content, and then reinsert it to Moodle, no problems. So this is what happens when the exam tries to be submitted when there's no network at the end. And as I said, this only happened to 2 students, but because it's auto-saved, it doesn't matter. Under normal circumstances, oops, we're getting out our cameras and we're taking pictures of the screen and hoping we might be able to capture all their stuff, right? But it is large and red. That means call a supervisor, because, you know, at that point we will try to reconnect their Wi-Fi. Often that happens, no problem, we can reconnect the Wi-Fi, but sometimes you can't. I guess that's the advantage of using a wired network. It's less likely to happen. But unless you've got millions of dollars to wire up a 70,000 seat lecture Caulfield racetrack, then maybe Wi-Fi will have to be it. There's a debate still to be had. The other thing that happens here is, for those of you who did our trials earlier on, you would have remembered the double handling nightmare of USB sticks. That goes away. So with this system, once it's detected a successful submission to Moodle, it sends a signal to the USB stick to clean itself up. And now it's ready for the next student to use. So this is what the back end sort of looks like. It's a simple web page. You go there, you click a link, and you upload the encrypted files that you've retrieved from the USB sticks that didn't submit. better to have done this than to have lost the students' responses, I say. So as I said, there was this phased implementation project. We're at more or less phase 3. Phase 4 and phase 5 require a big quantum leap, if you will, in terms of network reliability to allow that to happen. There may be that you will determine that certain exams really require internet access, internet-based resources, and you might stick those onto fixed wired networks where you can ensure a lot more network monitoring reliability, and others on Wi-Fi. So I think there could still be a future. The ultimate dream is fully open internet access in the exam room, a la open book, but open internet, but we log and monitor everything. So I suppose that's getting back to the Proctor-U style idea where, yes, there's a certain amount of lockdown, but they would have freedom, but they know they're being watched. We have a prototype now that will take a screen movie for the whole session. I'm not sure if that was in this system or not. Martin, was it in there? No? Okay, so we have a prototype where it will take a screen movie of the whole thing. So you can literally hit replay and watch exactly what the student did through the entire session. That's coming soon. So this is kind of where we're at in terms of our project status. If anybody's willing to collaborate and bring further, we're more than happy to hear from you. We're definitely playing in the phase 4 and 5 now. We've done all that one already. Just wanted to show a couple of an example from our most recent trials at Monash. Semester 1 and 2, we used this exact system in Scott Grant's Chinese language courses units. Here is some interesting things about the typing dimension of things. My handwriting is neat, so that's what the students admit. Now, for those academics in the room, may disagree with the distribution of green, because green means my writing is neat. Now, I detect a little bit of self-delusion in some of those responses. But it's interesting enough to say that my typing is fast enough for e-exams, and you can see there's really only 4% of people that disagree with that. You know, look at the neat handwriting one, which I suppose is we could have asked them, oh, I can write. When we say neat, of course, it's under exam conditions where speed is also a factor. So if you've got all day to write the exam, all week, you may produce a much neater version. But in the time-pressured environment of an exam, it's and I'm sure you will notice as you mark exams, the latter pages are always more messy than the earlier ones, because it's like, oh crap, I've only got 10 minutes, let's write down as quickly as I can. But at least with typing, almost everything they put onto the digital paper will be readable. We've also gathered data about a whole lot of usability questions, but as I understand it, we're almost out of time. These slides will be available, so never fear, you'll be able to refer back to it. And we wanted to find out whether people thought Moodle was okay for e-exams. Moodle worked well for exams. You can see there's only a small bit of disagreement there. And I can use this as well as my own laptop operating system, because the questions have come up in the past that, well, this is not Apple and it's not Windows. Can I adapt? Can the students adapt? Well, yes and no. But like anything, practice makes perfect. You know, if you buy a new car, you probably have to drive it a little bit carefully to begin with until you're used to the way it operates. It's the same with a new computer. So that's why we say important practice. Practice is so important with these things. With the series of exams with Scott, we did a series of 3. So there was a practice session, a mid-semester test, I think a listening test, and then a final high-stakes exam. And we did notice by the time they got to the last exam in the series that the students doing the setup and booting was relatively smooth. So over time, they get better at it. So what you've experienced here may feel like chaos, but that's always the same whenever you encounter a new system for the very first time. It's like, oh dear, which button do I press? But once you're familiar with it, I think a lot of that starts to go away. So for our studies, overall, we found that the students rated the experience reasonably well. It's not 100%. Can't please all the people all the time, but I think you can please most of the people most of the time. The robust network features that we've designed into the system do actually work. And I think it proves to some extent that you can use Wi-Fi in a local context at least, and that the fact that the Wi-Fi network may disappear halfway through the exam doesn't matter. we can deal with it. So it's not an impossible thing to overcome. As Andrew sort of suggested, there was a 25%. I think, Scott, you may be able to comment on the percentages of saved marking time, roughly 20 to 30. Would that be right? Anything higher?
Also, I'd like to point out consistency too across papers for using Moodle and using that whole system. You're much more consistent with your marking, because by the time you get to the 100th paper, doing it manually, you might have forgotten what you've done previously. So I think
Right. Yes, the ability to refer down that gradebook listing and things that Gabby showed, a picture of all the marks. That's one of the beauties of systems like Moodle, is you can have a quick overview of all the class by just scrolling down the table. But I would have to say, I have to keep saying this. When I first started this stuff back at UQ pre-2015, there was a good third of students that preferred paper. When we gave it optional, there was a good third that said, please don't make it compulsory, a third that said, yay, can we have it last year? And a third that says, nah, doesn't matter. I think those percentages are shifting now. People are less resistant to doing the e-exam, as we found in which we made it compulsory and we did it in Moodle, an environment they're familiar with. Those kind of concerns sort of start to melt away. So are there any sort of other things that you'd like to ask at this point? I think I'm more or less done before we do the final, that's the workflow.
Questions? Just as an aside, we had one student with disability who would have had to have used something like this anyhow. He only can write with one hand and it's very slow and so on, and this system was perfect.
Can you use the microphone? Sorry.
Sorry, it was coincidental, but it worked.
There's a microphone there.
Worked out really well for him that he was able to use this system. The other thing was we didn't give our students any choice in their final exams, and I think part of the problem of giving them choices is there'll always be somebody that's going to take the other option. And as far as I'm aware, there were no complaints at all by either our third year or our first year students when they didn't have a choice. They just did it. So I think we worry too much about that.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Matthew,
Yep.
do you want to go into the final?
Yep, sure.